Well, thank you, Speaker. And as I've said before in this House, in the midst of the argy-bargy, there are moments in which we come together on the common floor of this parliament to express the deep sympathies to those that have been affected by particular events. And today, of course, we all stand to speak to the loss of both life and, in some cases, for many, for some time to come, I suspect, hope, as they were caught up in the Martin Place siege. What tremendous contributions we've just heard in this place over the last few moments, let alone for the hours that were dedicated to this debate yesterday. But I pay tribute to the contribution of Ed a moment ago, and I will use that name. I was going to use his, I know, but I'm going to say Ed in this particular case, for his contribution, and of course for the father of the house who stood to his feet. His father for many reasons, but to hear his contribution was very special also. I love getting out of this place, Mr Deputy Speaker, because this is a world of its own in here, and it's lovely to be home. I can't wait to go home after tonight. I'm sure we're all the same, because it's where our friends are, that's where our families are, that's where our constituents are, that's where our life is, and that's where the world happens for us. So it wasn't that long ago, just on December the 15th, that finally getting back into my electorate, I was thoroughly enjoying, I'd had a coffee, ironically, and just headed up the street to do a street walk, as good members of Parliament do, you know, dropping into some of the local businesses, how's life, and so on and so forth. It was a beautiful morning, people were happy, it was a great day. My phone rang. It was my 20-year-old daughter, who doesn't live in the electorate, but rang and said, "Dad, are you listening to the radio? Are you watching TV?" I said, "No, I'm out on the streets. I've got a coffee and I'm walking." And I said, "What's going on?" And she, with great despair, told me of the events unfolding in the centre of the great city of Sydney. Now, whilst it was early and it was speculation, there was something in my gut that told me I didn't need to speculate. There was a sinking feeling in my heart that that event that all of us had hoped and prayed would never occur in our backyard, as we watched events unfold across the world over the last few years, had in fact turned up, had in fact arrived on our doorstep. This great country, isolated from so much, pure in so many senses, not all, but in many senses of being immune. We think we're immune, and we watch on our televisions and see the impact on the lives of many in other places of the world, never to think for one moment that we would be faced with such an event. We'd never think it could happen to us. It's like that in life, isn't it? We don't think it'll ever happen to us, and when it does, our whole world is changed, our whole world is turned upside down. Whoever thought that the two words lone wolf would mean anything other than the potential character in a children's storybook? But over the last little while it's taken on a whole meaning of its own, hasn't it? That now, completely different to, say, how we felt or how we strategically planned defensively after the events of September 11th, where all our attention was about whether a plane could do damage in our cities, and so on and so forth. We now, as a global community, have to face this incredible challenge of dealing with people with radical views that are simply based in an evil intent, all on their own, to make a statement to the world. How do you defend yourself against that? And the father of the house just a moment ago talked about the benefits of the intelligence that we gather, and that's true. And the way in which the laws in which we pass in this place very much assist us in being better at heading off, as we saw only in the last few days, potential attacks on our livelihoods. And we can do all that we can, and we are. And there is more to be done, and there's more to be said, and more laws, no doubt, to be passed. And we'll do our very, very best. But the reality we have to face is that it's really difficult. When someone has evil in their heart and their intentions are to make a statement to the world based on flawed fundamental views, it's really difficult to stop. But I only can thank God today that in the midst of the great loss of the Martin Place siege and the devastation for the families that no longer live and breathe next to their loved ones, thank God it wasn't worse. And that's a little consolation to those that have lost. December 15th was the day that terrorism very much reared its ugly head on our soil, our magnificent soil, with a brutality, albeit by one man, that we'd not seen prior. So on behalf of the electorate that I have the privilege to represent, on behalf of the electorate of Braddon, I want to thank the police services of New South Wales and all the other first respondents for the way in which I believe they responded to this unexpected, barbaric act. And I want to send on behalf of my electorate the thoughts and prayers to the victims of the siege and their families. Not only were some lives lost, but many were wounded both in body and spirit. And it was moving for me to leave this chamber the other day after the Prime Minister had spoken and moved this motion, to move out into the foyer here, Mr Deputy Speaker, and to see the families that were here in the gallery to listen to the words conveyed by the Parliament, to see the deep anguish and loss and heartbreak as many of these people were exposed to me as the elevator doors opened as they made their way down to this ground floor lobby. Braddon might be a fair distance, Mr Deputy Speaker, from Sydney, but we were, as Australians on the little island of Tasmania, hoping and praying for an outcome that didn't result in any loss of life, but that wasn't to be the case. And sadly, the siege didn't end as well as we all were hoping and praying for. So my prayers go out to the family and friends and colleagues and of Tory Johnson and Katrina Dawson. Tory Johnson, obviously a tremendous fella, loved by all, respected by his workmates, and the loss of his life is a tragic loss. To Katrina Dawson, obviously a great wife and mother and friend and colleague, and the innocence of this, the fact that innocent people get caught up in an act of hate, and the impact of those 16 hours will be felt throughout the victims and their families' entire lives. There are inquiries underway, and it's best we stay away from that, I think, today, and just hope that whatever it is we find will be of use in the future. The person that carried out this attack and those in Australia that support his actions have no place in this country. This act of brutality on individuals, innocent individuals, was an attack of brutality on our nation. No doubt how we respond to this act of brutality to ensure it doesn't happen again will be the subject of much debate. But we must love our brothers and sisters, we must resist the temptation for evil, and to commit our lives to peace. The Apostle Paul, as I finish, Mr Deputy Speaker, wrote these great words if possible, so far as it depends on you, be at peace with all men. I thank the House.
I thank the member for Braddon.